Alison, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you. Yourself?
I'm great. I'm so excited to meet you. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Just to get started, can you tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Sure. My name is Alison Levine. I'm 31 years old from Montreal, Canada, and I am a Paralympian in the sport of boccia, currently ranked world number one.
I love it. I love it. I'm so excited for you. You say it so casually. That's what you are, and I love it. I guess can you just tell me about like when you realized you needed sport in your life, and how did you land in boccia?
A little bit of background is I have a degenerative neuromuscular condition. So, pretty much, I was born what appeared to be perfectly healthy. We had no idea that in my genetics, I had this rare condition that when I was around 12 years old, I started having trouble walking, started walking with a limp. And eventually, after many, many years of testing and misdiagnosis, we realized that it was unfortunately a degenerative condition, and that as I grew older, I was going to get progressively worse. And it was kind of at that time that I felt that at around, I guess, 13, 14, 15 years old, I felt that I really needed to take control of my body, knowing that it was going to be failing me. And for me, that was through sport. So I started in therapeutic horseback riding, where they realized that I might actually kind of have a talent and asked me if I wanted to compete in some local shows against able-bodied people. We would hide my disability so that I didn't get any, pity points from the judges or anything. Um, and that's kind of when I got my first taste of competition and realized how freeing it was and how I felt like I was on a level playing ground. Um, Unfortunately, because of the degenerative nature of the disability, I was no longer able to, safely sit on a horse anymore. But for me, I didn't want to give up sport, so I went looking for the next one and fell into wheelchair basketball and para ice hockey, which I played for a few years. Then moved on to wheelchair rugby when I could no longer do wheelchair basketball. And then it was at the end of my wheelchair rugby career when boccia kind of found me. I threw some balls. 3 months later, I was on the provincial team, and 6 months later, I was on the national team. Haven't looked back since.
That's I love that you just okay, like on to the next, right? What's the next thing I can do? I love that attitude too. That's so cool. But I guess you left us off here kind of at your quick transition. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? And it was just a few months. How did that turnaround happen?
I have no idea. It was just kind of like throughout my whole, I guess, sporting career, I've just always gone with the flow. And I always feel like when people say, like, when did you make the choice to become like a Paralympian? I always kind of say, like, I didn't. It just kind of happened. Obviously, if I didn't love what I was doing, it wouldn't have gotten to this point. But I think, bocce is the sport that's created for people with the most severe impairments. So pretty much in order to qualify for bocce, you have to have a level of disability that would pretty much exclude you from any of the other para sports. So it's kind of like I didn't really have a choice in a way of that. If I wanted to continue sport, bocce was kind of the next natural progression. But the support that I had at the beginning in terms of the infrastructure we have here in Canada and more specifically in Quebec for bocce really pushed me up onto the national team right away through talent identification. So I was really lucky that way, I'd say.
For sure, for sure. I realized I skipped a question that's fairly important to people who don't know what bocce is. Can you tell us just how it's scored and kind of the basic rules so people know what you're talking about here?
Sure. So it's one of those sports that it's easy to understand once you see it. Little hard to explain verbally, so hang with me. So bocce is a precision target sport that can be compared to lawn bowling or pétanque, or a little bit even like curling without ice. So in principle, you have one white ball, which is called the jack, and that's the target ball. Then you have six red balls and six blue balls. You play as one color, either red or blue. They're The objective of the game is to get as many of your balls closest to the jack, closer than your opponent's closest ball. So it's played over 4 ends. Each end, you throw your 6 balls, and your opponent throws the 6 balls. And you can displace the jack, you can push the jack. It's a very strategic game that's kind of like physical chess in a way, that takes enormous amount of precision and concentration and strategy to play. And in my category, which is the BC4 class, we play individually. So 6 balls against 6 balls, or in pairs, where I have 3 balls, my teammate has 3 balls, and the same with our opponents. So yeah, a little hard to kind of picture it verbally, but yeah.
Definitely. No, I think you did a great job, and I'll link a video too, kind of in the comments, so people can watch along with what you're describing.
Excellent.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, cool. Now that we've kind of backtracked, we know what the sport is. We know that you do it. We know kind of your path. Can you tell us just a little bit about the people that helped you along the way?
Yeah, for sure. Like I said, I feel very lucky. Montreal especially is a hub for boccia in Canada. The majority of our national team members are from Quebec and from Montreal. So we have an amazing training center here. And I think it's, partly because of that I made my way up so quickly. But first and foremost, the man who introduced me to the sport is my current one of my current pair partners, Marco Dispaltro. He's former world number 1 as well, and bronze medalist in pairs at the 2012 Paralympic Games in London. And he kind of has a similar history to me. He made his way through numerous sports. He has a type of muscular dystrophy as well. And it was on the day that I was volunteering at a wheelchair rugby tournament, when I couldn't really play anymore, that he came looking for some new players with his case of balls. And I was a little shy to go up at first, because I don't know, I was just like, a new sport, and there's this guy, I know he's world number 1, a little intimidating, but I went up to him and he was super nice. I guess right away he saw that I would class in to the sport and had some talent. So he gave me kind of a sheet of paper of where to show up. It was apparently a Team Quebec training camp, and I showed up there a few weeks later. And he's kind of been he's been the superstar in Canada when it comes to getting people into the sport and recruiting them. He's the guy that will give you the shirt off his back. Provided me with my own set of balls right from the beginning, from his own set. As an athlete, we're competitive, and right away when he saw that, he always says to me, within the first few months, he knew that eventually I was going to surpass him and be better than him. He didn't shy away from that. He encouraged it and built me up. It can be so hard being an athlete, psychologically feeling the pressure, and he made it the opposite. He supported me and brought me up, alongside with the amazing coaches we have here, the amazing installations we have at the Quebec National Sports Institute. And my mom is as well. She is in boccia, every athlete has what they call a performance partner or sports assistant that is with us for all boccia related activities. So to training, travel, competition, pretty much they're in charge of our daily care. So things like, showering, getting into bed, transfers, all that stuff, as well as the boccia side of it. So picking up our balls, setting up drills, taking care of the equipment, pushing us in our wheelchairs. So my mom, who's now retired as a nurse, but she was still working as a nurse when I started playing boccia, she became eligible for progressive retirement. So we sat down together and decided that this was kind of something that we were going to embark on together. So she would be working as a nurse twice a week and training hard with me 3 days a week as well. So full-time job, using every single vacation day, unpaid leave to travel the world with me. And now that she's fully retired, she's full-time performance partner, sports assistant. But if it wasn't for her as well, I would be in a lot of trouble trying to find someone to take care of me and train with me as well. So lots of people, it takes a village, and definitely I had a big village for me.
That's awesome. The bigger the village, the better, right? The more support, the more cheerleaders. That's great.
Exactly.
Can you tell me a little bit about Gia? Is it Gia?
Yes, it is. Most people do not pronounce it properly. So Gia is my service dog from the Mirror Foundation here in Quebec. We've been together. It'll be 9 years together on Monday. She's 11 years old, and she doesn't go to tournaments with me or anything like that because it's really hard overseas and whatnot. But she came into my life and changed my life really at a pretty crucial time. I was a college student at the time, and I was kind of really going through a fast degeneration of my disability. So when I got her, she was trained to pull me in my manual wheelchair with a special harness. And if it weren't for her doing that, there's no way I would have gotten through college, because any little ramp or bump, I wasn't physically able to push myself. I hadn't gotten a motorized wheelchair yet. Um, Now, what she does for me is pick up everything that I drop, which is so many things, multiple times a day. She pushes buttons for the automatic doors to open them. She can take off my socks. She can take off jackets. She can bark if I need help. She can help me with transfers in the way that, like most dogs, if you push on their back, they're going to sit. She's trained to do the opposite, to praise herself so that it braces me. And she's just, my furry companion as well, that is always there with the unconditional love.
That's amazing. I know I was looking through your Instagram. I love obviously the boccia highlights and things, but I love the pictures of Kia. I love it. More dog pictures, the better. So fun. Um, cool. Okay, let's kind of, I guess, transition again a little bit and talk about training and kind of working up towards Tokyo now. First, can you just tell us a bit about precision training and like how you do this, and I guess how some of your training strategies changed over the last year?
Yeah. So boccia is repetition, repetition, repetition. And then when you're done with that, you repeat it. So pretty much muscle memory is key in boccia, in getting your body. We do drills where we play with our eyes closed even, so that our body remembers how to properly, throw and release the balls. Really technical sport. Um, and for us, like a typical training week is 1 day on court, 1 day rest. Most athletes, you see them training every single day, 6 days a week, huge hours. You're not going to find that in boccia. We know that with our conditions as well, rest is equally as important to training. That's not to say that on our days off, I'm not doing video reviews of watching my opponents, watching myself, meeting with mental preparation experts, so sports psychologists, where we're learning to deal with everything that happens on the court in your head. Some people say 98% of boccia is played between both ears, because of the mental aspect to it. So we're always able to train on that. And when we're on court, it's a lot of drills, working on a lot of our weaknesses, playing simulation games, playing simulation pairs games where we work on a communication and decision making, because playing in pairs and playing individually, it's really two completely different games, completely different strategies. They're both awesome and have their own, merits, but it's like, you finish one competition in individuals and then you just start another one right into pairs play. Obviously, it was really difficult during the pandemic when we were not allowed to train at all. We were stuck in our apartments individually. I didn't have my mom, my performance partner, with me to even pick up my balls. So my dad had to make me a makeshift ball picker upper, because Gia can't pick the balls up because they're too fragile and expensive. But eventually, during at the beginning of the pandemic, I was doing what I could, throwing some balls in my apartment. A boccia court is 10 meters long, and I do not have an apartment that big. So I was doing what I could, but luckily we were still able to keep up the mental aspect training of it, with more meetings with the sports psychologists. But it was really hard not being able to do what you love. Eventually we were able to go back to practice, but with extreme measures, in that we had to practice alone, no teammates, only one coach at the other end of the court. Really bizarre, and missing that team aspect. And it's only been a few months now, actually, that we've been able to practice in pairs again, two of us at a time. once a week, we're allowed 4 of us at a time for a real pairs game, which is great. But again, because of the nature of our disabilities, we're very vulnerable to COVID as well. If we were to get sick, it would be very, very dangerous for us. So whatever measures are in place, we go above and beyond. So it'll be crazy weird being back together. Even just when we're on our way to Tokyo, being in an airport, it'll be the first time any of us have been outside in like 2 years, other than when we all went to get our vaccines. So I'm really looking forward to that. But I'm happy that we seem to be over the hump.
Definitely. That's true. I think the first time I went into an airport, that was a very weird experience for me post COVID. And I was like going back to school, and I was like, I have to go back to school, like going back to the city. And it was a crazy, I don't know. I was just like, I don't need to be this close to this many people at once.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's funny. Okay, I wanted to touch on something that you mentioned, right? You BC4, this is independent, right? It's just, is this one person participating at one time?
So BC4 is your classification given based on your disability. Yeah. So BC4, we play in individuals and in pairs. Yeah.
Okay, got it, both. Okay, so the next question is kind of what's the overall team mindset and energy? You kind of already answered this. You're excited to be back together and things, but I guess can you kind of just talk about the difference in playing independently and playing in pairs, and kind of the different mindsets that you have going into those different kinds of games?
Yeah. So individuals is scary because it's you alone with your 6 balls. Every mistake that you make is your mistake. And when you miss a shot, there's no one to turn to you and say, that's okay, next one, we're good. You can rely on only yourself. So it's stressful, but it's also empowering that it's all you. You have all your 6 balls, you have your weapons, as I like to call them, and you can play true to your style of play. Then there's pairs where you don't want to let your teammate down. Every time you miss a shot, you want to apologize, but your teammates is there to, that's all right, next one. Or they'll go make a massive shot, and you thank them for for picking up your mess a little bit. It's a huge different dynamic, but I think the most important part when it comes to pairs, and one of the strengths that we have in Canada of our pairs, we're ranked 4th in the world, by the way, is the trust we have between each other and our strong communication. We play, and we've worked really, really hard on this, especially 2018, 2019. There were a few rough years in there where we weren't performing to our complete potential. And it was all about just trust in each other's abilities and letting us play, a mix of both our styles, and just knowing that our teammates have our back no matter what, that when you miss a shot, it doesn't matter, next shot, there's no judgment. We're really just going to play as a team.
Definitely. That's so cool to hear, I guess, both sides of it, because I can watch it, right? But I don't know what you're thinking. I can't tell that you're scared when you're doing your independent ones.
Yeah, I got that stone face, but yeah. Inside I'm kind of going
internal screaming. That's okay. We'll never tell on TV. Cool. Let's see, just a few more for you. I have to ask you a question about Tokyo. What are you most looking forward to? This will be your second Paralympics. And I guess what's going on between now and then?
Coach likes to say that anything we do now is not going to make a difference, right? We have the skills, we got to just trust ourselves. That being said, it's going to be a weird Paralympics. It's not, if I think back pre-pandemic, this was supposed to be like my year, number 1 in the world, coming off wins and wins and wins, going into it with a high level of confidence and just really loving what I'm doing. And then everything stopped. I think we've got a little bit of a blessing in that we're just going to be so happy to be there that it's going to make it very memorable in that way. But we have to be we have to be realistic in that. I mean, when people say, you know, go for gold, I always say, I promise to give it 100%. I promise to try my best. And that's all I can do because, like I said, when August rolls around, I will have not competed for 2 years. Versus, especially when we look at the European and the Asian countries, they've had competitions, they've been training, they've had no COVID restrictions. And that's a big, big advantage for them. Now, I'm not saying that we don't have any chance whatsoever. Still, we're going to go out there and give it our best. And I plan on coming home with 2 medals. But I think no matter what happens, I have to be extremely proud of myself and my teammates for what we've gone through. And considering the circumstances of arriving there and just playing, it's going to feel so foreign and weird. But I'm looking forward to it because it's kind of that signal that the end is near. We know that after Paralympics, there will be another competition. Next one's set for December already. While we like to think of this of Paralympics as, the epitome of your sport, and normally it is, you look up to that. In the end, it's still just a competition. And no matter what happens, whether you finish first or you finish last, you're still going to go on to the next one.
Definitely. That's such a great mindset to have. I think there's a lot of, like, especially this year, kind of like what you're saying, people are putting all these like extra pressures on themselves, like, oh, I've been out of it for 2 years or something like that. But yeah, it's just another one. It's just another one.
I think one of the things that people also forget, and when I say people, I mean not the athletes, I mean like the media and the general population, is that to be able, now that I've qualified and I'm going, I can say that I'm a 2-time Paralympian. That in itself is often, obviously they report on the medals and stuff like that, but just the fact you don't go to the Paralympics because you want to go to the Paralympics. You have to qualify. You have to be the best of the best. Just that in itself is a huge accomplishment. And often us athletes as well, we forget about that. We're so focused on the medals and the results that we forget that even being there and competing is already incredible. So, I have to keep reminding myself that. And honestly, that takes the pressure down and, remind myself to be proud of what I've accomplished and that, I'm representing my country at the biggest sporting event in the world. That's mind blowing still,
Yeah, it's mind-blowing for me and I'm not. So to you talk about it and everybody else on the show too that I've interviewed, it's so crazy. Like they say that, right? Like, oh, like I'm on Team Canada and I'm number 1 in the world in this. I'm like, that's crazy. That's so crazy. But it's so cool. I'm so excited to watch everybody, and I'll be up all night with the time change and everything, watching all of my awesome guests compete and stuff. I'm so excited. But cool. Let's see. 2 more questions for you. I end all shows on advice. So we'll start first with, I guess, what advice would you give to somebody who wants to start boccia, and what would you say to them?
I'd say go for it. I'll give a warning to everyone first and say, when you start, you're not going to be good. Like, it is extremely rare to be good when you start, but don't let that deter you. It's a sport that's extremely hard to master, but you have to remember that the people that you're playing against have years and years and years of experience, and just don't be afraid and don't shy away from that. Like, you're going to miss shots. It's no matter what, you're going to lose games, but look at, the fun part of it. You're playing a sport. It's an enjoyable sport. Just keep at it and you will get better. You may not be number 1 in the world, but you're doing something, you're being active, you're enjoying the sport. Just go out and do it. No one's judging you, and just have fun, really.
Just have fun. That's the best advice when it ends in fun.
Yeah. At the end of the day, it's a game, right? That's all it is. It's a game.
That's awesome. Cool. Okay, last question, another advice question. But what is one piece of advice you would give to younger Alison?
Younger Alison is a difficult one, I have to say. It's kind of I guess twofold. It was it was rough growing up, knowing slash not knowing what was going to be happening to me, physically. Um, so I always, I'd love to be able to tell myself that it's going to be okay, not just that it's going to be okay, it's going to be more than okay, because I feel privileged to have this life. I feel like I have an amazing life. And in fact, it's kind of because of my disability. I've been given that laissez-faire card to do what I love, because I know that, I may not have as much time as most people. So while, I see a lot of my peers that, are married and have kids and do that 9 to 5 grind, are they necessarily happier than me? I don't think so, so I kind of feel like, in a way, I got this blessing, this gift. So it could have taken a lot of worry off my shoulders when I was younger, if I could tell myself that it will be okay. And then when it comes to advice, probably just to it's something that I pretty much have a handle on now, but to really enjoy every moment and do as much as I can while I can do it. I've missed out on being able to do some things that were on the bucket list, and unfortunately haven't been able to complete them. But nonetheless, you'll be okay, Ali.
It'll be okay. That's great advice. Great advice. I love it. I love ending on advice. I hope some people take away something and they're like, yeah, just enjoy it, or go have fun, or just do it. Some
Yeah.
lasting words. I love it. Cool. Well, Alison, thank you so much. This has been great. I know I learned a lot about this sport and your story just from hearing you speak about it. And I'm wishing you the best over the next few months. But thank you so much for giving me some of your time today.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.